Well, it's about time that they finally did this. The anime has only been going on for what, a couple of years now, and we finally are getting an official Fate Strange Fate with Fate Grand Order collaboration event in the game. I'm not gonna say it's on time, but I will say better late than never. And when I saw this in game, I was like, oh, what's going on with all this? What are they doing over here? And then bam, threw that into Google Translator, and yeah, it's collaboration event pre-opening campaign. So it's going to be this pre-release campaign is going to be going from the 15th to the 29th. But I wouldn't be surprised if we just saw the event itself actually drop next week, unless they have something else that they want to drop on the 22nd. So latest, if they really are just going to let it run the entirety of the pre-release campaign, we'll see this event drop on the 29th. But if not, we might get it a little early on the 22nd. But something that I wanted to do in this video is not really talk about what we're getting in the pre-release campaign, because it's all the standard stuff you would expect. Oh, you log in, here's a Saint Quartz, right? All right, we got the dudes running up on banner. Now, the thing that I want to talk about is something I think is a little more interesting, and that is some of the characters that I would be really excited to see if they wanted to bring them into Fate Grand Order. Now, we got to keep our expectations kind of realistic, right? Even for some of the bigger collaborations that we've gotten. Think of the Seraph event, right? Banner 1, we got Melt Lilith, we got Suzuka, I think, was on that banner, and then we also had Passion Lift in the second banner. Actually, no, was Suzuka on the second banner with Kiara? And then we had a free-to-play. But the point I'm trying to get across is that there was about 5 to 6 characters that we got from that one, right? We got like 2 5-stars, 2 4-stars, and a free-to-play. So we're looking at about 5 characters if we really want to set our expectations super high. But we also could just end up maybe getting 2 5-stars and a free-to-play, or it could just be 1 banner and that's all they want to do. It kind of depends on how deep they want to go into things. And I will also say that for some of these, I might be dipping into little spoilers for stuff that I want to see. I'll try not to get too spoilery with things as for why I want to see specific people, but there is a character I'm going to say for the very end that is kind of spoilery. So just know when we start getting to the end of the video, I'll give you guys a little bit of a warning. So with that being said, let's just start diving into the people that I really want to see. Now, I don't think this one is very realistic, but I would absolutely love to get more stuff on the Pale Rider. I mean, everybody is going on about, oh, I think Alcides is he's so goated, Hippolyta is so cute, and oh, Prelotti is just a goofy little, well, can't just say goofy little lady. She's kind of up to some devious behavior, but Pale Rider is the one that I have my money on. Do I think they're going to win? Probably not, right? This is really not someone you can have win, but just the idea that they go into, and again, I'm going to try to spare you guys for spoilers, so whenever they get caught up on the anime, you can get more of those details from what they have in the light novels. But the ideas they have for this thing is super, super dope. Like, in just what it is, I would love to see just what they could do for different ascensions for the Pale Rider. But I think this is super, super unrealistic because, bro, what are they going to do for 3 ascensions for this thing, right? Like, we barely have any sights on this guy or this thing inside of the series properly. So what are they going to do for ascensions? How are they going to integrate this thing into the story, considering that this thing is like nigh unbeatable in Fate Strange Fate itself? What are they going to make us do in an event where we do have to wrap everything up in a nice little bow? So as cool as I think they are, probably not very realistic, right? I don't think it's something we would actually see. One of the other ones that I do think is more realistic is getting the Jack the Ripper that we have in Fate Strange Fate. The one that can kind of adapt themselves to different perceptions of themselves. Some people are like, oh, well, they thought Jack the Ripper might have been this doctor person, so they could take the appearance of a doctor. Or some people thought it was this lady over here, so they could look like that lady over there. I think it's super easy to do a bunch of different ascensions for this one, because you could functionally do whatever designs you want. If there were designs that they couldn't get across in the manga or the anime that they wanted to use. Maybe they were on the cutting table. You could just throw in whatever you want, which I think makes him a really fun servant to do. And this is going to sound really weird, but this Jack the Ripper is actually, I don't want to say he's a cool dude because he's a serial killer, right? But as far as fake characters go, it's very interesting, right? I thought they did a lot of very interesting things with this Jack the Ripper, and I definitely think they could make a pretty powerful servant out of them. But I think the one that everybody is definitely putting their eyes on is the boy Alcides, right? Everybody wants to get, Archer Herc with air quotes, because this is Alcides. It's not Archer Hercules. Alcides is his human name. So, again, we could still potentially get an Archer Hercules in the future, but there's kind of this ongoing joke that Nasu, one of the head writer, or like I guess the head writer for the Fate series, he has such high expectations and puts Archer Herc on such a pedestal that we're never gonna get him. It's gonna just be like the mention man, like, oh my goodness, if we only had Archer Herc. I think the only time I think we've ever seen, or not even seen, but known of Archer Herc doing something is a Lost Belt 5.1, where Artemis had to shoot him twice to actually take him down. It was like the first shot, knocked out all of his lives, and the second shot is what, sealed the deal on him. So I don't think we're ever really going to see him properly. Maybe the Grand Berserker battle where he could pull out the giant bow, maybe that's as close as we're ever going to get. But Alcides is a very cool character. I will say, though, that when Fate Strange Fake was coming out, I've been following this series ever since it was first coming out, right? I'm one of the early followers of it. I was really gassed for Alcides, but I think I'm kind of over it a little bit. I think it's because they didn't quite live up to the hype that I wanted them to have, but I kind of get it. It is the human version of Herc, so maybe they want to lean more on, smarts and, how he got through all of the 12 lavers, and he's very witty and stuff, but at the same time, I feel kind of cheated because they hit him with the Grail Mud debuff. I get it, his master's a real scummy guy, so you can't really have the goodest boy of all time committing war crimes with you, but it's just a really weird character for me. Not that I would be upset. I would be totally fine with them doing Alcides. In fact, I think it would be very smart for them to do, considering how popular they are, but it's just one of those characters that I feel like maybe when it was coming out, my expectations were into the stratosphere, and, he still flew, he was flying up there, but he never quite reached those heights that I wanted him to get to, right? So, still a very, very cool character. I love the idea of the various labors being, like, different, like, noble phantasms, and then him literally having Pandora's box. I think there's still plenty of cool stuff about this character, but I don't know, maybe people could let me know if they were also like, yeah, I heard all these great things about this guy, and then he just didn't quite live up to the insane potential. But it's alright. I mean, look, if it's the proper Archer Hercules that exists in Nasu's myth, then maybe one day we'll get that. But he has a little bit of a cop-out for me, in that it is the human name for Hercules, right? We don't have the true, deity, crazy, whatever nonsense Nasu has planned for Archer Hercules. But this is one of the ones that I think we'll definitely see getting. If not one of the main headlining 5 stars, just for how popular they are, at least a 4-star, right? At least like a side 4-star on the banner. And considering how good Berserker Hercules is to this day, not like a crazy servant, but you could still use Berserker Hercules, and, he does his job just fine, right? There's some bosses he might struggle more with against as they start to get harder and harder, but it's a good basis to work off of, right? Now, this next one is something that I think probably fits the role as like a free-to-play servant if they wanted to do that, and that is Sigma, because Sigma kind of feels like the main guy we're following. It's really weird, because Strange Fake, we're following so many different perspectives from so many different characters, but Sigma kind of feels like one of the ones that we really should be paying attention to. Again, I'm really trying to dance around talking about things, but it feels like the closest things you could have to maybe a protagonist character in a show that can't really have a one true protagonist. Kind of like Fate Zero, sure, Kiritsugu and Artoria are kind of the protagonists of the show, but we also focus on Waver and Iskandar, we focus on Gilgamesh and Kirei and Irisfield and stuff. It's like one of those type of shows, which is very interesting. But if they wanted to give us a free-to-play type of character. I think Sigma could be really cool. With like the NP maybe having something to reference with their watcher, their servant over here. I think that could be something that's really sick if they did want to do that. That's kind of what I would peg them doing. Aside from Sigma, I don't know why I have this kind of vibe, but if I'm thinking of a character that's not going to be summonable, but they want to make them the free-to-play, for some reason, I just feel like Hippolyta would be a really good fit for that one. Maybe it's because, as they were coming out, it was like, oh, it's just the red-headed saber face, right? Although when the manga started coming up, people were like, oh, it's the black-haired saber face, and then it was like, oh no, it's the red-headed saber face. But I don't know, maybe it's just because that they have that saber aesthetic that they could, maybe get away with being like, oh, that's your free-to-play character. And Hippolyta's pretty cool. I like Hippolyta. They seem pretty easy to get along with. Not to go too in depth with it, but Hippolyta is also one of the only servants we ever see that their master does the ascension stuff that we do in FGO, where they ascend and their outfit changes, they get more powerful, and so that could be kind of cool. Although maybe that wouldn't work as a free-to-play because, they don't do different ascension arts for the different free-to-plays, but then again, that depends on like how much they want to actually play around with that with dialogue. They could just have her say, I was supposed to get more robes, or I was supposed to get a really cool horse in my second ascension. Where is it? They could play on it like that. Or, and this is just a crazy thing that they could do, but remember how our first free-to-play character in Saber Lily had 3 different outfits? What if we just, crazy thought, started doing stuff like that again, huh? Maybe just start doing different ascensions. Come on, man. Let's give those free-to-play characters a little bit of love. I don't know. Maybe that's where they could be like, you know what? Free-to-play characters, they're getting outfits again. Now, as far as another character that I just kind of want to see, just because I like the dynamic they have, is what's going on with Prelati, where they are both their own master and their own servant. Now, I think this could be really cool, because one, I just think the stuff that Prelati is doing in Strange Fake is very interesting, right? Like any character in a Fate Grail War that's operating in the background is probably doing some of the more cool and interesting stuff on the magic side of things, which is stuff that I really gravitate towards more. But you could also have some interesting stuff where their ascensions could flip-flop between the two, because obviously they want to put the anime woman out there. They want to put out the crazy anime woman to get people like me to try to summon on their banner. They know that if they throw John Mann out there, not going to get as much sales, especially when you do have potentially Alcides out there. But I'm just thinking of like the cool stuff you could do with them. And then also, again, I'm just, looking at their class. They are a caster. And casters have pretty famously been a really good support class. And wishful thinking maybe, but look, there is a card type that could use somebody on the level of Koyetskaya and Castoria, if you want to give them a little helping hand over there, a real de facto support to help them out. It's something that I'm always going to be pining for, is like, please just give them the one in the full package support. But if they want to make them an offensive character, I think that's also perfectly fine. If they maybe want to go in the route of Kazura drop, right, where they're kind of an offensive and supporting type character, that could also be pretty cool in and of themselves. But I'm kind of keeping my eyes peeled for a Prelati duo if they would like to do that. I think Assassin is also a pretty free one to do, because again, this is where it gets into how deep into things do they want to go, right? Because there are certain characters that I'm not mentioning that they can't really do because they either aren't in the anime yet, or they're like very recent in the light novels, and that might also conflict with the stuff that I believe the author is Narita who's doing those. It might conflict with stuff that they're doing. In fact, way back when FGO was starting and these were originally coming out, he said, don't use the characters I'm using because I don't want things that, I'm going to explore in my series to be spoiled, right? And that's why Nasu was a little coy with it, because he said, well, we're not doing the Berserker Edison that was supposed to be in Strange Fake. We're doing a Caster Edison, and we're not doing Enkidu, we're doing Kingu, right? Which I have to imagine was a little frustrating for Narita, because it's like, dude, those were characters I wanted to use, but it's fine, you guys are trying to tiptoe around it. But as far as characters that appear pretty early on and you could do a lot of cool stuff with, you could just do it with Composite Hassan over here, right? Just person that says, I've got everybody's Zabania. I've got everybody's things. I'm just literally Composite Assassin. I'm John, or I guess John S. Assassin over here, I guess is, what do we call the, instead of being like, oh, this guy's John Halo, what do we call the female version of that? Johnish? Joan Assassin? I'm going to pin that right now. But we have Joan Assassin over here that just does everything that everybody else does, and I think they're recognizable enough that people would want to summon for them. And, I mean, they look good, right? They be looking good. I think people would be like, oh, this character's really cool, right? I think you can give them some really cool outfits to make them summonable. So, I don't know. Shrug. I think Alcides, Assassin, and Jack the Ripper are some of the more obvious ones. Alexandra Dumas is there, but this was one of the servants that I didn't gravitate towards that much, and I'm wondering when like doing this video, some people would be like, no, I really like Dumas, because look, bro has written some pretty good books, right? If I'm remembering correctly, he wrote the Count of Monte Cristo, the Dante's book, and there was a couple other ones that I was that I was gonna bring up, but they're literally slipping my mind. But it's not important. Very, very talented author, right? He's written some pretty good stories. So I like him for those purposes, but as far as their characterization in Strange Fake, I'm like, they don't grip me as much as some of the other characters do. So potentially, maybe we could get them in there, but for the role that they play, this could also easily be a great support type character if they wanted to do that. I would not have any qualms about that, but it's one of the ones that if they did drop a Dumas, like if I saw that he was like the 5-star or something, I'd be like, I'm not as gassed, but I would also be really excited because let's see what that kit's going to be. I think the higher the rarity they are, the better they would be as a support. And unlike Prelati, that they could kind of go in multiple different directions with, as far as interpreting their skills into FGO, Dumas pretty much has to be a support, right? That's his main thing. That's the thing he does is support people around him. So they can't turn him into an offensive servant or something. But watch me eat those words. Why did I have this pulled up? I don't remember why I have that pulled up. But, okay, so this is where we're moving into a little bit of spoiler territory. So if you don't want any spoilers for later on in Strange Fake, click off the video now. Thank you for watching. Mucho apreciado. But for my other people that are still sticking around, the main thing, me as A1 Gilgamesh Glazer, is that I want to get Gilgamesh Alter Ego. Dude, as soon as this dropped, what was this, like 2 years ago? One of my buddies came running up to me and he was like, dude, did you read, like, the translations for the most recent Strange Fake novel? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, my boy Gilgamesh was getting absolutely butt blasted in there. Like, they were jumping him, and they were hitting him with poisons and stuff, and he's out of commission, and I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan. They're like, dude, we're getting Alter Ego Gilgamesh. And funny enough, this is also around the time that My Day came out in, Honkai Star Rail, and I thought My Day was the Alter Ego Gilgamesh. Like, a lot of people thought that was Gilgamesh because he looks similar. I thought it was Gilgamesh because we just found out about an Alter Ego Gilgamesh in Fate Strange Fake, and I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Because apparently this is going to be more of, like, the boxing Gilgamesh, right? Because in the Epic of Gilgamesh, him and Enkidu just started boxing each other for their fight instead of, the Fate interpretation of them like throwing weapons and stuff at each other. Like they were throwing hands, and so the Gilgamesh is apparently going closer back to that original interpretation where he's going to be, throwing hands with people, which I'm really looking forward to. But this is very unrealistic because this is still relatively new. And as far as I'm aware in the anime, we are not this far into the anime. We do not have Alter Ego Gilgamesh. Unless, I don't know, maybe I missed out on an episode. Maybe I'm a little behind. Maybe I gotta be more up to date on my anime stuff. But I do not think we are this far. One of the last things I think I saw from the anime is that Ishtar summoned Humbaba, which was pretty cool to finally see. Get brought into an actual, animation department. So I remember seeing something along those lines. But it's really unrealistic, and I know it's another Gilgamesh, right? We got Caster Gil, we got Archer Gil, we got Kid Gil, and then now we're gonna have our Alter Ego Gil. But dude, I would love to see it. As Gilgamesh's #1 fan, as his #1 glazer, as everybody calls him, Fraudamesh or whatever. Look, man, give me the alter ego Gil, and I'll absolutely cream my jeans. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Who are you most looking forward to coming with the collaboration? Because when I saw it, I didn't think, I was like, oh, it could just be some kind of tie-in with the event or whatever, but it says collaboration event, pre-opening campaign, right? This is an official humdinger event, right? It's got a whole, it's just plain as day right there. So I'm really looking forward to see what we get. I'm hoping they kind of go all out on it. Again, just kind of to reiterate my predictions on things, I'm thinking we'll probably see, you know, Alcides as a 5-star. We could see the Assassin as like a 4-star on his banner, or Hippolyta is thrown as the 4-star on his banner. And then we have like banner 2 might be Jack the Ripper as a 5, and then you toss Assassin there as a 4. Free to play could just be Sigma, or you could do Dumas, right? If you want to make it kind of like a Flora, the recent free to play we got that's a really strong support. You could do something like those along those lines. But I have high hopes because the characters we've gotten this year have all been very, very strong. So I'm looking forward to these guys releasing in 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes they do like to have the pre-release campaign overlap with the actual release of the event, but it could be 2 weeks out at maximum. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of characters for us to talk about. I'm ready for them to just break the game or something. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Oh, don't forget, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I was too excited that I don't even think I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. And also we have the Patreon down in the description down below, where I'm going to be putting out some Arknights videos as I explore the lore of the world. Try saying that 5 times fast.